Hey, everybody, welcome to the live stream. We are here. It is the evening, it is nighttime, and it is National Nurses Week. And it is a great chance to highlight all of our amazing nurses that work in our communities around Michigan and in Grand Rapids and Saginaw. And tonight we are connecting them live to our nurses on the night shift. We are talking night nursing, and it is a special breed, a special person that works with our patients at this time. And so we are connecting with a nurse in Grand Rapids and a nurse at our location in Saginaw. So the nurses we got in this interview today, we've got Katie Bauer. She is a registered nurse at Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation in Covenant Healthcare in Saginaw. Hey, Katie, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. And then we've got Scott Morgan. He is a registered nurse at Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
And so you guys have stepped away from patients, stepped away from your clinical work here to talk to us for a few minutes to talk about what is night nursing and why, especially in rehabilitation, it is special care that you're giving to our patients. So we'll start really quick with Scott. Where in the hospital, what kind of floor and what kind of patients do you work with?
So I work on the west addition of our hospital on the fourth floor, 4 South, brain injury.
Excellent. And then Katie, what about you? What part of the hospital in Covenant are you working at?
Well, here in Saginaw, we are connected to the main hospital, Covenant, and our first floor is strictly offices and outpatient rehab. On the second and third floor is our inpatient rehab that has a therapy gym on each floor. And, as nurses, we float in between the two floors.
Okay. Excellent. And so, how, Scott, did you get started working as a nurse? Where did this for you start?
Oh, wow. I was in Chicago and left my first career, moved back to Grand Rapids where I grew up and had no idea what I wanted to do. So I actually sat down one night and made a list of what I wanted in a job, just anything, and came up with about 3 different things. And that from there, it sort of morphed into healthcare from those, and ended up talking to a really good friend of mine for a couple hours over lunch and about nursing, and nursing kind of came from there. So it was very unexpected. I actually kind of shot down the idea of being a nurse when I first came in, and then through that little process there, nursing came up. So kind of cool.
Yeah, excellent. And then Katie, what about you? How did you fall and or get directed into nursing?
I had quite the journey to it. I in high school I won 2 golf state championships individually. Then I went on to Eastern as a full ride scholarship to play golf, and was trying to find myself. And after playing a few years there, I decided that I needed to be in a field that I'm passionate about, not just interested in, like golf. So, I watched my mom go to work as a respiratory therapist at Hurley and Flint, and it's what really motivated me to explore healthcare. And I picked nursing because there's so many opportunities, there's so many different things you get to do, and
Hmm.
that's been my journey.
Oh, that's awesome. And I want to go to both of you guys too, Katie and Scott. How long have you guys each been working as a night nurse, and how long in general for nursing? And Katie,
So I've been a nurse. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead,
Go
Katie.
ahead.
Yeah.
So I've been a nurse on night shift on and off for 13 years. I was a CNA for 2 years prior to that on night shift. I did dabble a little in day shift, but here I am back on nights.
And you started as a CNA and then went back for more
Yeah,
education for an RN.
yeah, yes.
Excellent. What about you, Scott? How long have you been nursing, and how long as
Uh,
a night nurse?
yeah, I've been a nurse for 12 years. First couple years, I was at more of a subacute rehab. I worked 2 to 10, 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then when I came to Mary Free Bed, almost 10 years ago, they started me right off on night shift, 7 to 7. So
Awesome. And then were you always a registered nurse, or did you start with a different certification at the beginning?
no, ran a nursing school, started at my first job at Covenant Village, and then came here about 2 years later.
Excellent. Well, let's dive into the work, because I know a lot of people might have questions about how is working as a night nurse different. It's not just the hours, but you're catching the patients at a different part of their day, and especially in rehab, during the day, they are working with their therapist, they are into it. But then in the night, that's when you can see things that kind of pop up and those connections with the patient. So let's start with you, Scott. Like, what's it like working as a nurse?
It is a little, it is a little bit slower maybe than days, obviously, because they don't have therapy at night and family for the most part is gone. We have our med pass to start off with. It usually takes a couple hours, and then kind of usually in bed by 10 or 11 o'clock. So it can be a little slower from time to time, but most of the time you're managing pain and, bathroom visits. And we do have our time where it gets pretty busy, but it's probably going to be a little slower than days on the whole.
Yeah. What about you, Katie? What is that? What do you see, and how is it might be maybe a little different than what people might expect?
Well, I think a lot of people might not know that, inpatient rehab, it's a 24-hour thing. There are things going on all the time at Mary Free Bed. And it's, my job to help keep that go smoothly, um, and whether there's downtime or not. But for the most part, we're seeing patients at the end of their day, and they might be extremely tired. They may have more pain because they've worked all day and worked so hard with therapy.
Hmm.
Might even be a time where you have a very personal experience with your patients because family's not there, doctors aren't there, and they just kind of, are able to release some of their emotion. Um, but as a nurse on nights, it's really about making sure all the wheels are still spinning and making
Hmm.
sure we're doing everything we can to reach the patient goals.
And what are some of the examples of, like, if you have a patient that might be a brain patient, what might you see in the evening with them, or a spinal cord injury patient? And you mentioned, like, with bathrooms or meds. Scott, what are things that you might see that's common for a patient at night that they need, that the night nurse call goes on?
Well, sometimes they get a little more confused at night, especially if they've had a long day in therapy, and they can have some behavioral, um, ramp ups here and there depending on how bad
Hmm.
their injury is.
Yeah,
A lot of it is related to pain, quite frankly, because they've been moving all day. They do 3 hours of therapy a day. It's pretty intensive. So
yeah.
it kind of varies patient to patient, but you see, that kind of stuff.
What about you, Katie? Any kind of specific things that you kind of see come up more and more for patients at night?
At night, a lot of times we have to reach out to the doctors if maybe they had an extensive day with visitors and therapies. With brain injuries, we have specific sensory programs that they're on, and if they are too stimulated, it can result in increased agitation, confusion,
Hmm.
anxiety, and so that's something that we expect, and that we try to plan for, and and sometimes it involves, additional medications, things like that. We really try to avoid that kind of thing, but we do everything we can, just for the patient.
So, and both of you guys, rehabilitation, it is, we've talked about the therapy. Talk about that connection with patients. The patients you guys are working with, you guys are seeing them for, not just days, but weeks and sometimes even months. What's that connection and then the relationship? You guys said that family isn't there in the evening, it's just you. Do you become that family for the patient, Scott?
You do. I mean, we have primary groups, so for the most part, they try to keep the same patients with the same nurse. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
working three shifts a week, it's a little tough, but they try to for the most part, give you the same patient. That was something they really focused on the last few years, and you get to know what they like. You get to know when they go to bed. So some people like their meds early or late. You like just small stuff, almost creature comforts that they like, how they like their water or what they, you just kind of get to know what they like, and you get a chance to talk to them a little bit more. I mean, Katie kind of mentioned that there's a little more time during the night to maybe chat with them more so maybe than during the day because they're really
Hmm.
busy with therapy. So yeah, you do kind of get to know them pretty well, and you kind of almost become. I mean, you're their nurse, but you have little jokes with each other, and you kind of can kind of tease each other. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. we're watching this video. This was from, earlier, probably the 2020, 2021, 2022. So we were still requiring masks, but you can see the connections of smiles that the staff has with their patients and with each other as they're working. Katie, are there any like success stories you've had with a patient you've really connected with, or you saw these milestones during their care?
Um, well, the one thing about Saginaw is it's, you know, one of the biggest small towns I've ever been a part of. And,
Yeah.
HIPAA is such an important part of a healthcare professional. So specific examples are hard for me to narrow down because I wouldn't want
Hmm.
anyone to think that, I'm talking about them. But, it's for these rehabilitation patients, we are doing everything we can to equip them with the tools they need to, you know, help them help themselves. And
Hmm.
that's what I see every day is an improvement in one way or another is helping them help themselves.
Excellent. That's great. Um, Scott, so as we're getting close to wrapping up this interview, I want to hear more too about like the team, the bond you have with your other fellow nurses. You know, I've said it's like a special group, but like, what's the family like amongst the staff, the people that you're working with every night?
Yeah. I mean, we get along great. I mean, you do work with different people, almost every shift just because of the different 12-hour shifts. But you tend to, it's kind of funny with your schedule, you tend to really work with the same people
Hmm.
if you have the same type of schedule. And I mean, we get along, we work really well together. We all get along. I don't think there's anyone I don't enjoy working with. And you see them, you're with them 20 to 30 hours a week. And you can actually kind of miss them when you don't see them if your schedule changes. So I think that's
Hmm.
the big thing. We all get along very, very well. On most of the floors that I work at out here. So.
That's awesome. What about you, Katie? Why do you enjoy this work as a nurse and especially as a night nurse?
Well, I it's cliche as it is. I love helping people, but here at Mary Free Bed, the one thing that that really drew me in when I first started working here is we don't have discharge days. We don't have discharge nights or anything like that. We have a graduation day,
Mm,
and people line the hallway and clap as these patients are graduating. And that right there just gives you like a sense of such a sense of positivity and inclusivity and family. And that's what we feel, as we're working together. And it's amazing how in these, some of these patients' hardest times in life, we see that. And then we all just come together. And it's, we always try to be, you know, um, each other's support system while we're
mhm.
here. So.
Excellent. Scott, why should someone, if they're thinking about going into nursing, why should they consider working as a night nurse?
Oh, that's kind of individual preference. I know there's a lot of people that don't want to be up all night. When you're off work, sometimes it can be a little rough to have the changeover into the normal schedule. But um, I think it's just, I think it's personal preference. I know it's kind of
Mhm,
a, a bland answer, but some people just don't like being up all night. It is a little more of a challenge, but you get used to it, and having to cross over in your normal life can be sometimes a little difficult. But um, I think it's great. I mean, she kind of touched on. We don't get to do any of the graduation ceremonies, obviously, at night, but it is pretty rewarding when you see someone coming in who's alert to themselves and they can't, walk and they can't feed themselves, and some can't even talk. And within
mhm.
a few weeks, they're actually walking out of the hospital.
Yeah.
That they have such a dramatic turnaround, and we get to see that at night. We don't get to the
Mhm.
graduation ceremonies, but it's all very rewarding.
Yeah. Well, that's so great. And then last question to both of you, why Mary Free Bed? What is it about this organization that keeps you coming back for 13 years, for 10 years every day? Kate, if you want to go
For me,
ahead.
yeah, for me, so I mean, one of the first things right off the bat, like I said, we don't have discharge days, we have graduation days. And coming from a world where it was pre-COVID, and then I worked through some of the most difficult areas, like ICU in the COVID, and we'd have to, you know, line the halls for the patients that didn't make it. Um, this has absolutely Mary Freebet has absolutely put this new passion for nursing that I have. That may at one point in time I might have thought maybe this isn't for me anymore because of what we were all going through as a community. But I'm so lucky to be here, and I love being a part of everyone's rehabilitation.
Mhm.
It's really great, and the growth that they have. They're popping up new locations of Mary Free Bed, across the nation, and so the opportunities there are really encouraging.
Awesome. And Scott, last question to you. Why should someone consider working at Mary Free Bed?
Rehab is a specialty. It's along that continuum of care. They can't go home yet, so they need to go somewhere, and it's they do treat us like family. I mean, the doors are always open with the managers. I think they treat us great. They're always accessible, the managers. Staff gets along really well. We all kind of, there's no kind of sloughing off. Laziness is a terrible thing to ever consider. Sometimes you
Yeah.
have your days, but we all get along great as a team. And it's such a great, I mean, I've never had a patient say that they didn't have high expectations coming here and that we met them. So I
Mhm.
mean, it's the best rehab hospitals in the country. So it's an honor to work here, quite honestly.
Awesome. Well, Katie and Scott, thank you guys so much for chatting with me, taking time away from your patients. Tell your managers thank you.
Will do.
And this goes out to all of our nurses for National Nurses Week. Thank you all for all you do. It's been a tough couple years. We're getting around, but we really appreciate you guys on the front line, especially our night nurses working all hours to help our patients. Want to thank you guys all. So thank you for watching and stay well.